Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Just trying something different. It'll be a moment.
No worries.
Just trying to do the hi.
Morning. Hi, Vince. How are you guys?
Ah,
You were saying, Monique, you're trying not to do.
well, I'm trying to do this without my hearing aid connecting,
Right.
but it just does it automatically. I can't figure it out. It's okay.
I would just go into Bluetooth and click on the hearing aid and it should disconnect. Oh, what I found, so it depends on whether you've got a Macintosh or a Microsoft system, but in the Macintosh system, you'll find your hearing aids under the inaccessibility.
Yeah, it's actually it's an Apple. It's a very old iPad that still works. It's like 8 years old.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
probably still the
Um,
inaccessibility. You'll find hearing devices and you can connect or disconnect them there.
Okay. I'll just play with that and I'll
Yeah,
join you shortly.
yeah, no worries. Yeah. How's things for you, Alexey?
Kind of good. Can't complain. Uh,
That's interesting when you say kind of good.
yeah. Now there's something that kind of me and Marius were kind of discussing. He said, "Well, keep coming to the now," and he said, "What's wrong with the now?" So I'm like, is it not complete and full? I was like, I don't really know about that one. It it's not incomplete, but there can be more contentment and more fullness. I'm still looking for something. So it's kind of that's why I answered kind of good.
Okay,
Um,
so that the technique, and this is always a bit of an issue with this stuff,
yeah,
when they say look for, how do you look for something like an eye? How do you don't you do you use your eyes? How do you look for it? So what do? Your mind goes darting here and darting there, and you get very quickly sucked into looking for an intellectual response.
right.
That
So
has a certain feeling to it. Yeah.
the technique he's talking about is just the inquiry, what is here right now that's not a thought. So that kind of takes the mind element out of this, and that there is this coming to the now.
Right.
And like when we first started communicating, I was just suffering really deeply. Like the searching was just really intense, like deep suffering.
I get it.
Like I
Obsessive. Yeah. I had
yeah,
that.
like I didn't tell him, but I was like, there's parts like some part of me that was like, I want to go to some sort of like a t Tibetan place meditate, and I was like, fuck, I hate meditating. I was like, that's not gonna work. But that that deep suffering was there.
Yeah.
And then I kind of started doing the self-inquiry and I really gave myself over to it. Like it's just something that's kind of running on automatic now. And then pretty quickly I realized I was like, oh my God, for years, like a decade, I missed the now. I don't know what the hell I was doing. Like I completely went to fantasy land for a really long time. Um, so and then the other feeling kind of comes up. It's kind of like a bit of a guilt where I'm like, there's really no suffering, or maybe extremely minimal. Like it's pretty pleasant, fairly contentful. And I used to have this idea that that suffering would be something that kind of propelled me through this. And now there's this kind of guilt. I'm like, I'm not suffering. So what is it that I want? And I was like, I still want to know. I still really want to know. I don't care about the suffering because before I
Okay.
thought it was
Again,
the suffering that was driving this whole thing.
yes, yeah. So again, the technique is in analyzing what you're asking. So you're asking, what is it I'm after? But in fact, there's no answer to that.
Right.
There
It's
may be,
completely
but
unknown.
right. So the appropriate question is does it feel like there's something missing? Right now again, don't focus on the something that could be missing. Does it feel like is where your focus goes?
It feels like something is not quite complete.
Right.
Like
So,
I
so
don't know
what's
how
that
to
feeling?
describe that.
Where's that feeling? Where in the body do you experience that feeling that feels like dot dot dot? It feels like. That's the clue. That's your portal. That's the doorway into what you're looking for.
Well, I know what you're talking about because my attention goes there the way that you describe it. Um, I can't verbalize where it is. It's just
Oh,
I
okay,
kind
that's fine. Of course you can't. It's not a specific thing. It's not like somebody's touching you or you
yeah,
hurt yourself or anything like that. It's vague, isn't it? But there
it's
is a
real vague.
yeah. But there is a. It's almost goes from being a feeling to being an emotion.
So something that that kind of occurred the other day. I've been feeling really peaceful kind of lately, intermittently. And then yesterday, it was this deep stillness. I don't think I've ever really experienced it where every fiber of my being was still. And I was like, I've heard about stillness. I just, um, and the amount of contentment that I had was just overflowing. It was like a mystical state.
Okay,
And I
stop,
was like,
stop.
what?
Yeah, let's see. This is really valuable, really, really valuable stuff. Okay, you can't feel stillness. What you were relating to that you called stillness was an absence of whatever you want to call it.
There
Move.
was just no move. I was like, nothing more could ever be wanted. Like this,
Okay, yeah,
like
exactly.
that's just overfilling.
So in that absence of what you probably feel or used to feel regularly
Yes.
and frequently, that you
Yeah.
never recognize it as a feeling, right? In the absence of that chaos or that churning or that movement. See, none of these words really work, do they?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know it. None
yeah.
of them work, but it's
But
something
in the
that's
absence of all of that, there's nothing to feel. Yet, what happens is you have an emotional reaction to that, and that emotional reaction is what you might call clarity, or calmness, or tranquility, or equanimity, whatever words you want to come up with. But that's a description of the response to the lack of movement, the lack of incessant movement, the lack of
right.
yeah, that kind of movement. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so when
And
you say what's here in the now, you're not looking in time. You're not
no,
looking
not in
right,
time. Yeah.
and you're not even looking
Right
for
here.
what's there. You're looking to recognize what's not there. But you're not want to define it. You're not going to put words on it. What you're going to do is recognize that there is this place of well, stillness is a good way to put it. Kind of. It doesn't do it justice, but you know what I
It's
mean.
not, I do know what you mean. It's not quite it.
Yeah.
The words just aren't good. Language is not good here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And then I had the
there is a
I
there is a place where you just it's like you just throw up any possibility of anything other than this wordless place, this wordless space, this the
yes.
experience of something just that is, but it's like there's no longer a push or a pull or a shove or a
That is exactly
side.
it.
Yes,
Stillness is close, but it's not
yes,
energetically. There's other stuff going on that you can't quite describe.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I was wondering, I was like, is this what you're referring to? Is this the now you're talking about? Because there's, you cannot want anything from this place.
That's right.
Like, there's truly nothing missing. Like,
Yes.
nothing. Like, there's not a
How can
subtle,
you have
like,
more than everything?
that's right. You have more. It's almost overfilling. So I was like, I don't know. And I was like, I kind of felt like a wave of emotions, and that kind of passed. And I said, okay, that's great. No big deal. I'm not trying to hold on to this. It's this weird thing, but it's just kind of what this. I'm just doing this inquiry basically all day, every day, in kind of a gentle way. Like everything I'm doing, I'm just kind of that's all I'm doing.
So what I would suggest is next time you experience this place, and you can do that just by remembering it. You know, it'll come back to you when you remember it. But
Yeah,
next time you get into that place, find some not specific, but some general kind of anchor point that says, this is it, this, right? Now recognize
yeah,
that, of course, the moment you say that, you're going up into your head and you're applying
yeah.
a sticky note to it, right? So you're going to put the sticky note on it, but then you're going to ignore the sticky note and go back and enjoy it because that's,
Yes.
you can't do anything but that, right? But when you, when you, when seeking comes back, if you were to go back to that sticky note and you would be straight back in it and seeking would drop. You don't have to inquire. You don't have to do
Yeah.
anything. You just go to a place you know and it's done. It's done. No matter what questions come up, no matter what anybody asks you, no matter what they tell you to do, that's the place.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get there with the mental gymnastics.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Yes. It's kind of like I wrote him something and I was like, it's almost like witchcraft. This inquiry thing, it's like, how does this even work this way? Because the attention moves in this weird way, and you do go to a place, but you cannot get there with your mind. And I was telling a friend, she's just desperately suffering and seeking. And the way she's talking, I was like, you're in your thoughts. She's like, I tried the now didn't work. I was like, you did not try the now. It is not possible for you not to have stillness. You're thinking about the now.
Yeah.
You're not in the now. And I was like,
Mm.
I didn't even know what I was talking about like a few months ago, but I have a little bit better understanding that your suffering is truly immense because you're just in your thoughts and
Yes.
you're searching and that's what's going on right now with you.
Okay, so let's come back to this and look at this a little bit because it relates to when you see what will be really obvious to you now as a result of this experience is when other people are lost in thought, right?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
get
real
this.
obvious.
All of society, everything that you know about everything about nationhood, about politics, about all that, it's all conceptual.
Right.
It is all about some weird fairy story that people have come up with. And then we get all these details of the fairy story. But people are brought up to believe that that's real. And so they get this process goes on in their brain where they create an image about something and then they relate to that image as if it were actual. And you can't
Right.
convince them it's not actual. You don't even try to convince them it's not actual. They have to discover that. You can't
I
control.
tried momentarily. She's like, "Well, I want to be a self. I never had a chance. I was broken as a child." I was like, "I know what you're saying. I really do. I know you want to heal in some way, but you cannot heal in that way. You're you're trying to read stuff and that ain't it. You're not in the right place." But
It can be
they
tricky
all like,
because for some people, depending on what they're going through, they need to establish a self before we can knock it over.
yes.
So if they haven't got one at all, if they've never had one, a solid self, trying to tell them about no self is not going to work.
And that's what she told me. She said, don't talk about this no self. I want to experience what human relationships, other things. I want to be someone before I'm no one. I'm like,
Yeah,
fair enough. No
yeah,
problem. Like I love her to death. And I was like, that's cool. Like if
yeah,
that's what you
yeah.
want to.
That's a big one. Yeah. Well, see, it's also true that when she reaches no one, she'll be everyone. So she's not going to give up on something. That's the thing that she wants first, that self. That'll be there, but not as a self. It'll be there. It'll be there in other ways. So it's not like one is going to displace the other. It's like discovering something that's underneath. It's like take off the top layer of paint and oh God, they painted it this color before. Right? And that's really what it's about. We're going to just take off the surface layer and reveal the original layer, maybe. Maybe
Right.
it's just one more layer, not the original, but who knows? But you get what I mean. So, so really, the the way I would, if because you've got a relationship with this person where you obviously want to help. Now, that's also an interesting one. That there is also stuff for you to work on. That desire to help and fix somebody is expressing
I
a
really care
dissatisfaction
for
in
them.
yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't,
And I
don't
was
don't not do it. Just be aware that's triggering something in you, right? It's not that you would be callous and don't care, right? That'll never happen. That's part of your basic nature kind of thing that you will care, of course.
right.
But so a huge thing for people like that is to understand them, right? And she's able to say the things that you've mentioned, which means that you've got a really great relationship where she's open and honest with you, right? She's ready.
Yes.
She's
It's real
she's
honest. Yeah.
accepting that she can look, right? But don't try and take it too far. So the thing is, understanding. Listen, 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 listen. Ask questions and find out, find out, find out. Because as she's sharing it with you, she'll discover things for herself.
Right.
Right. So don't really hesitate to give any advice. Just go, well, maybe in a year from now, if I know enough about you, I could offer some advice. So in the meantime, I want to know more. I want to know more. Tell me more. What's going on? Where do you feel that? And so ask her more detail. Every time she says, oh, um, I've, I feel such and such, ask her, where do you feel that? What's more? Tell me more about that feeling. What does it feel like? Right? And by the
Well,
time she's
with her,
described it to
she's a
you in
little
a
bit
way,
closed off. She can be a little closed off. So I only get a few moments where I have to be really vulnerable and authentic with her before
yeah,
she opens up and just, but otherwise she'll just close back up and that's fine. Like I don't try to open anything up. Just when it happens and it's kind
yeah.
of beautiful. But there,
She probably hasn't met anybody like you before, because the majority of people are going to have opinions, going to judge,
she hasn't
and
met
you are not.
someone.
Yeah,
We had some interesting kind of, I don't like the word spiritual, but there's some mystic stuff that was kind of going or um that was going on with me, and she was like, "You really get me." I was like, "Yes, I know what you're talking about. The suffering you're talking about, I really know you're searching for something that is not found in society that you live in, and you have no one to talk to about this." And you're just getting like whomped by all the people you're around.
of
I
course.
get it. It is awful. There is
Everybody
no
just wants to
one.
give her advice. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've got
Um,
to show her that you get it, right? Which means you've got to reflect back at her what she tells you so that she says, oh, I know that he gets it. I can feel that he gets it.
well, she was a little bit surprised. I was just traveling through South America for a little while, and she was like, "You went back to the United States," and I said, "Yeah, what I was looking for, just it's the seeking. It's with me everywhere. This going to a different country, it's cool to look at mountains and beaches and beautiful views, but I truly don't care about those things. I'm not interested in that. So I was like, I gotta go back to what I've been running from for years. And then she went back as well. And I was like, huh, so you listened to me. Or she's
Yeah,
like, yeah, I had to stop running from that. I just to go back wherever I was at. Because we were doing like similar things.
Yeah,
So she feel like she can relate to me
right,
in
yeah,
that way.
yeah. That's good. Yeah. Oh, it's a great adventure, that one. Yeah. Yeah. And so good for you too. You find out so much about yourself as you do that. Yeah.
So, Vince, can you talk about more about the inquiry? Because the way it is with Mary is he just says, don't ask any questions. If there is doubt, that's doubt. You're just continuing the inquiry. And I was like, okay, I get it. I get it because this melts a lot of things. You're staying kind of in uncertainty and unknown all the time. It's a lot of things are happening with the inquiry. So I don't really try to place any kind of expectation or outcome. And these things that are coming up, I'm just kind of exploring with it.
Mm,
Um, and like I said, for me, it was just really noticeable that the suffering just almost disappeared. And
yeah,
I was like, this is a real thing. More people should know about this if they're deeply suffering with this. This is how you
absolutely.
stop the mind seeking, like, because you can go to a really bad place, like, with the mind.
Absolutely. So you and I know that all of this suffering, it's not short of being actual, that all of the suffering comes from the mind, as a
Oh
result
yeah,
of the mind,
right.
So the process that needs to happen is that circumstances need to be shuffled and aligned and created so that she can discover what is the mind and what is not the mind. And you could almost make an assumption that at the moment, pretty well everything is the mind. Those moments when her suffering stops, and they might only be for moments, will be
Yeah,
where the mind just has a rest. The mind
right.
stops working for a moment. Right? And if you get you there's so much in biofeedback, in noticing body language, noticing looks and expressions, and the way people breathe, whether all of a sudden, you get a sigh. A sigh tells you so much, it's a letting go. It's not grabbing, not keeping a hold of. It's a letting go thing. And they're the moments to get her to ask questions, right? What happened to your mind in that moment? What happened to your thoughts? Right? And she's might, in the beginning, she might say, oh, I don't know. What happened? Right? But do it 2 3 times, and she'll suddenly know that you're going to ask her that, and she'll be watching, and she'll go, "Oh, they went away for a moment, or they had a rest, or they got calm." However she might say it, and that discovery of hers is you're in. That's where she's going to learn how to recognize what's intellectual and conceptual, and what is actual. It's really, you can't tell her, but without mind, in the actual, there is no suffering at all.
Oh, I mean, I don't really know to describe suffering. There can be still movement. This and movement's not the right word, but not hard suffering. Not like
Yeah.
you're deep. Something is gnawing. That is from the mind. But I'm not awake, so I don't really know. And I only recently came and kind of figured out about the now, and I'm still kind of just shocked that you can have almost no suffering. Like this just oh my God, like you can live your life this way. It's much
Mm.
more enjoyable.
Yeah. There is no there. I want to dash an expectation for you that there is a thing called being awake. There isn't. There may be there may be moments that you would describe as being awake. I have moments that I would describe as not being awake. So there's no permanent anything, awake or not awake. So you have moments of being awake. You have lots of moments of being awake, I think. Right? But you somehow or other have this idea that, well, you're going to get a badge or a certificate when you get there. It's not going to happen. But you will get to a point where you realize that it's all bullshit, that anybody that says they're awake is playing with themselves. So just forget about that, right? We're all the time in and out of this place, you might want to, whatever you want to call it. We all have enlightened moments. We all have awake moments. But in the beginning, most people they have one and it's gone and they don't even realize. They don't even remember it. Nothing gets put into memory because it's so quick and instantaneous and so on. And they don't even get a blip because they pass over it so quickly. And those moments are a lot longer for you now. You have them. When nobody could understand what we were talking about with that stillness state unless they've been there. It's a description of an experience. And we were obviously unable to do justice to a description of it
Right.
because language doesn't exist that can do that. So so forget about being awake or not awake. What we're doing is reaching a point where when we have those not awake moments, we've got some tools and some skill to look at what's behind them. And maybe we'll do something or maybe we won't. Or maybe something will happen is a better way to put it, about them coming back or not.
But the way that I thought about it, the way I think I read on your website, you said sometime in the past you had some moment where it was like a moment of clarity where the self collapsed, and I was like, oh, maybe that will happen to me at some day. That's kind of in my own mind. It's just a conceptual idea.
Mm.
I can't relate to it. But I said, well, people have been talking about it. I don't know about what they're describing, but it sounds like I've been searching for this for a long time. So maybe one day it will happen to me. And now you're saying something a little bit different that it wasn't. I don't really understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. So when I had that epiphany, where I would say that was the moment of awakening, as a really loose way of describing it, there was not even any thoughts about a self. For me, that moment was came out of recognizing, even putting it into words makes it a bit tricky, but recognizing the inevitability of this, whatever this current experiencing is the totality of everything, and it just is. And the inevitability part was a total surrender, a total acceptance, not even that, just a total realization that anything other, all right, any resistance to it, any wanting it to be different, was just insanity, pure insanity, because it's done. It is this, and it's done. That was me, and I walked around with having a psychedelic experience for a couple of days after that.
Okay.
And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later when I was looking online for somebody to talk to about this stuff, and I think to get confirmation that something had actually happened, called enlightenment or whatever, that I found LU. And when I got to LU, they asked me about self 2 weeks later. And I'd never even thought about self until they asked me. But as soon as they did, it was just obvious that it was pure story, nothing but stories.
But like it sounds like you can see the stories from a more clean perspective than I
That's
can.
that's that's another way to look at it. It's a perspective thing, yes.
But I don't have this. I don't. If it's like when you talk, I listened to you before, and I was like, things he's saying, I can feel them, but I'm not. It's not my experience from where he's talking about, and I don't really know how that comes about, so I can just listen.
Yeah, well, everybody has it in their own unique way. So you're not going to have my version of experience or anybody else's. If 5 million people woke up today, there'd be 5 million different experiences.
But it kind of always sounded to me like it's just this grand epiphany in some way that somehow you disappeared. I was like, well, I don't really know what that even means, but maybe I'll find out. Because with the no self, I was like, I can't say out like I'm definitely a separate self. That's not accurate. But am I complete? Is there completely no self? That one doesn't isn't quite right either. So the no self, I was like, I don't really know.
Okay, that place of stillness, does anything exist in your experience other than what we might really loosely describe as this?
I kind of started checking around, and I was like, well, there's still kind of thoughts. The thoughts are there, but they're not really sticky in any way. There's nothing other than this. No, it's
Yeah.
quite ordinary. It's just the overwhelming of contentment beyond what
Yeah.
I ever experienced. That is just like this is just overfilling. There cannot be a want.
Okay, so what you've got in that experience, it is an experience. So
Right.
it will be temporary, of course.
Sure.
They'll come and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from that place, you have to invite something else into it. You have to invite the mind to be active. You have to invite anything from kind of outside of that place. In that place, it's nothing and everything. And you know what I mean by that. You acknowledge
Yes.
that you saw that before, right?
Yeah.
Even though you can invite the mind to query all sorts of things, including the existence of a self, it's like you're inviting something external to come into that place, and it can come in without disturbing it if it happens, if it's done right. I don't want to say that, but you know, there's
Yeah.
there's a way of it's not like you do it, but the words will sound like that. That's a way of anchoring that place, and so that when the mind is in there doing whatever it's not disturbing that place. It's like it doesn't belong. It's like you're outside and there's a leaf fluttering down from a tree, and it's fluttering because it's meeting the resistance of the air, but it's coming down because of the existence of gravity, and it's just wonderful watching it happen, but it's not disturbing you, it's extra to. And the mind looking for explanations, the mind looking for existence of self, all that kind of stuff is all extra to it. And in that place, you'll get to the point where you'll go, what a waste of time. Why am I even doing that? Let's just go back to enjoying this place.
Yes, because it was just kind of rare to be there, so I just wanted to try all the things. I was like, I'm gonna throw everything I have right now. But I was like, man, this is, I was like, if this is just complete no movement, then I don't want anything else. So you cannot possibly want anything else.
Absolutely. And how can you say that's not a, sorry, I'm choking. That's not an epiphany. You can't say that's not an epiphany. It may not be elevated with excitement like an epiphany has. You know, you're not going, you know, you're just going, oh man, this is something else. Yeah.
And then I kind
Maybe
of hear
maybe
people,
that's the le-
sorry,
maybe that's the level of your epiphany. Not everybody has these psychedelic experiences.
they've
You've
been
probably
happening to
had
me.
enough of them already. That's
I
that's
have, and then for me, I'm like, people told me this is not what I'm looking for. So I said, okay, like they can be quite beautiful, and it's hard not to even enjoy them because they're so beautiful. But this awakening is supposed to be something different. So I was like, okay, this is cool, but I was still kind of expecting that there'll be, some people kind of refer to themselves as the mind and the body. I'm not the mind and the body. I was like, I don't really have that deep of an insight that I'm not, that the mind and the body dropped in some way, or I'm referring to myself as this body is talking. I don't really have that experience. So,
Well, you did.
it's just a
You
lot
did.
of
It depends on how you describe things. That was an experience of not mind, not body, not anything you can define. You did have that experience. But part of you, there's something there that says, "Oh, this is not it. What I'm after is something else."
yes, but I don't know what it is. It's so
Well, I'm
weird.
telling you, stop looking. You're not after anything else. That not even that place. The fact that you've been there will show you. There's nothing to find. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to get. There's nowhere to go. What? If you line up everybody who's had an awakening experience or is still, let's say, awake, and ask them, it, what need what needs to happen, and they'll say it's not really about a happening. It's about unhappening. And when we unhappen, where are we? We're in that place you just talked about. And what we can know as a result of visiting that place is that looking for anything is just a diversion.
Yes, it's literally right here, right now. That the looking is
Absolutely. Yeah.
wrong direction. Like
Yep. Yep. Yep.
it's so counterintuitive, because the mind wants to look, and this
Absolutely.
is
Big time. Yeah.
exactly the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yep. 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 Now, knowing that it's right here and right now is probably more about being awake than experiencing it right here and right now. Now, I don't want to separate those completely, but having experienced that, we then know it. It's like having experienced that there is no actual self. What happens when the sense of self turns up? When somebody calls your name, "Hey, Alexey," and you go, "Yep." Well, that's a sense of self, isn't it? But what we've got is labels and habit. Those responses come out of a lifeline along responding to that label. Right? So you could describe it as a sense of self, but it's an illusion.
Yes.
Right? So when you're not in that wonderful place that you've mentioned, it still exists. It's a basis that everything else wants to corrupt. So that corruption, when it happens, is it a delusion or an illusion? If it's an illusion, we don't really respond to it. Okay, there it is. It's an illusion. The water on the road, it's not really water. It's just sun reflecting on the road. So you're not going to stop the car and get your water wading gear out, are you? You just drive through it because it's an illusion. So you'll have illusions of a self all the time, but they're only illusions. You don't need to respond to them. If they're a delusion, that's a different matter. You will respond to them.
But for you, it sounds like it's just a 24/7 experience. Or maybe that's just me not understanding or
No, I don't want you to
conceptualizing or
say it's
no?
wrong to say that. I don't have that amazing experience all the time. When I'm not here talking to you about it, I don't even think about it mostly. I'll go out there and my wife will say, "Take the trash out," and I'll take the trash out. Where's the enlightenment in that? What there is now that never used to be there is I just do it now. Whereas once upon a time, I used to think about whether I wanted to do it or not. And I'd often say, no, oh yeah, all right, later when I'm not busy doing this important thing, whatever it was I was doing. Now I just do it, but still, it's just taking trash out. No different to you taking trash out, except I'm probably a little happier about doing it than somebody else. You know, that's this. I don't walk around in la la land all the time. No, not at all. And I still get angry. I still get triggered. That still happens. Lately, more than it used to. But there it is, you know. Am I worried about it? No. What's behind it will reveal itself or not. If it doesn't now, it might later. Might not. I might die with it. I don't know.
So how can like when I'm terrible with names. The other gentleman that's kind of your friend. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Marius?
No, 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 no. No. He kind of sits behind this kind of Asian fence. It looks like I don't know where he's at in the kitchen or in his living room. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Ray. It's Ray.
No, 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 not Ray. No, no, no. He's a little bit older than Ray. Oh my gosh, not is it Phil?
Paul Simpson,
Not
right?
Ray.
There
Paul
we go.
Simpson.
There we
No, no,
go.
no. Sorry. Who?
Yeah, so the
Paul
way Paul was
Simpson.
talking last time,
Yeah.
he was saying,
Paul.
well, he had some guy with a survey, and the way he was talking, he sounded awake. So how I was like, what? I this it kind of doesn't make sense of what well, it doesn't make sense to me what you're saying. Like, how can Paul know that someone's awake if there's no event of awakening? Sorry if I'm getting too much in the weeds. I just want to better understand
No,
this.
no, no, this
How can
it's
he know?
good stuff. Yeah. I've been working on this artificial intelligent chatbot on awakening stuff, you know, and I gave it instructions to. In the beginning, the instructions I said were basically reframe your answers as questions so that the person will discover the answers for themselves and discover it with a visceral experience. That was kind of the nub of my instruction, right?
Okay.
And then I'm playing with it and I'm saying you can't experience a visceral experience because you're only a computer program, right? How would you know if somebody's having a visceral experience? And it came back and said to me, you're right, I can't experience a visceral experience, but I can know if somebody's experiencing one by the words that they use, the way that they talk. And so if I say to somebody, let's kind of think of an example. Uh, if I say to them, what are you feeling? And they say, well, um, I think I'm feeling agitated. And straight away I'll go, I think I'm feeling. They're up in their head.
Yeah.
If they come back and said, oh, I've got a sensation of tightness and vibration in my chest, then I know that they're having a visceral experience. They're describing experience. They're describing the body. But you watch people's words and you'll see very quickly whether they're up in their head or whether they're in their body. You'll also see them now that this is beyond the AI chatbot. It can't see them, right? But when I'm watching people, if they're going up in there like this, I wonder, right? You know they're thinking. But if they're going like this, oh, you know they're feeling, right? They look down
Mm.
when they're feeling, they look up when they're thinking. It's pretty obvious stuff. But listen to the
Okay.
words. Listen to the words, and you'll soon see what it is that they're telling you. Right. So we are trained, conditioned to develop a fantasy about the content of their words and not listen to the actual words. Right. So in a sense, that's what we need to do with ourselves. We need to recognise that the content of our stories are irrelevant. But the fact that the story exists is very relevant.
Okay.
And it's what triggered that story is our portal into understanding what's happening. Understanding is not quite the right word, but you get what I mean. It's
Yep.
it's what triggers it, what's behind it. So if somebody says, "Oh, I feel such and such and such and such and such and such," they might weave a really seductive story about what it is that they're feeling. But it's the fact that they're feeling that's the relevant thing, not what they're feeling. So when Paul is listening to people, whether he might not even realize it, right? Simply people who are awake, even though I've said what I've said before about that, but
I
people who
know.
are awake, um, it's really obvious when other people are up in their head in thought land. It is for you. Oh, that's very awake of you. You might not be awake, but you have some really awake experiences, right? You recognize when that woman was up in her thought land.
Because I was there for years, like a
Yeah,
decade.
yeah.
So
And the
I
fact
can
that you're
definitely
not
see.
living there now, you can see the difference. So what we're really talking about is a perspective. So this is if you want to define being awake, one way to define it is it's a perspective where you relate to things differently. You see a much wider possibility with everything. Whereas when you're asleep, you're walking around seeing the world like this. It's just a very narrow focus on everything. You're not seeing the context of things. So awake people see the context a lot more. See, there's no really good definition here. We
Mhm.
can just describe aspects of it. Have you seen the video that Paul made? Paul did a in one of the meetings we had. Paul was asked what awakening was, and he went off into this spontaneous uh, monologue about what awakening was. Although he was being questioned by somebody, and it turned out to be fairly decent length of stuff. But it was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant way of looking at what awakening is. Have you seen that one?
Is it the video you link on the website? Talk about what is enlightenment? There's
Yes,
like
yes, that's
that.
it on the website. Yeah, down the bottom. It's
I got into about an hour of that.
yeah, it goes. It's pretty long.
It's
Yeah,
about a 4 hour video. Yeah, it's like a three,
yeah,
four
yeah.
hour
But
video.
there's I did a clip out of it with just Paul talking about what awakening is. So if you look further down, you'll
Yeah.
find a link to that. Or if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll find it there as well. You'll have to just look through it or do a search for Paul, and you'll find it. Um, it's probably worth listening to. I mean, Paul's a lawyer by trade, and so he's got that kind of mind. So everything has got to be factual, He's very, very uh,
Mhm.
defined
I,
way of
I
doing it,
understand.
But he's got a great way of describing that works well. Yeah. But keep asking that question. Have you got the link to my chatbot?
Yeah.
Yep, go. I think I called it now discovering awakening or something along that lines. Yeah, um, but ask it questions. Ask it what's left to do. Ask it how do I know I'm awake. Ask it all these stupid questions. Whatever you can come up with, ask it and see what it comes up with. I'd love to get some feedback on you about that. Yeah,
Could you provide that link
yeah,
again?
yeah.
Because
I'll put it in. I'll put it in the chat now. Yeah.
usually put it in the chat and I want to save it this time because I usually just kind of play around during the meeting sometimes.
Do you have to be a member or something?
No, no, it's just yeah. Anybody can click on it and use it. Yeah, no worries.
Because I was trying to, I was trying to get to that link. And do you have
If you
to
just
actually
click
just
on it
put that
now,
address?
just click on it now, and then you can bookmark it if you want to go back to it. But it'll open up a browser and take you to it, and then you can come back to this.
Okay.
Oh, it depends what you're on, of course. If you're on a computer, that's easy. If you're on a phone or an
I'd
iPad,
have to do it on my phone, but it's okay. No, I'll
yeah.
just do that. I thought I had to be on Chat GPT or something.
No, no, it'll take you into that. You don't
Okay.
have to be a member to use it.
Okay.
I had to be a member to make it, but that was okay. Yeah.
So I used to have this idea, or I still have it, not used to, still have the idea that when you're awake, there'll be some self-evident event. It's not gonna not like from the sky, but something has to be like the way you talked about last time that everything stays the same, but your internal perspective completely changes. And I have not had just I try to feel the energy of your words, and I have not had I've had just interesting changes in perspective, but not where everything massively changes. That is,
Right. Okay. So
maybe,
again, you've got an expectation about what's going to
yeah,
tell you that you're awake.
exactly, yeah.
So how can you know until it happens? And I'll guarantee you it won't happen the way you think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And what I really want to give you a gift of, forget about it. It's not, it's, you're wasting your time. You're looking for the buried treasure that doesn't exist. You've already got it. Look in your pocket. It's like, have you heard that fable? That reminded me, a beggar sitting on a chest, and for years and years and years, he's sitting on that chest begging for money. And then somebody, I don't know how it happened, but anyway, somebody opened the lid of the chest and it was full of gold. And he didn't know it was. It was just an old chest that he sat on while he did his begging. Right? Well, that's you. You're sitting on that chest full of gold, begging for a piece of gold.
But what do you mean by that? Like I hear what you're saying, but it's not
So what are you
connected.
saying? You're saying, oh, this is not enough. If this is it, I'm going to be really disappointed. I want something more than this.
It's funny because I don't at this now I don't even know what I'm searching for. I'm like,
Well,
well,
that's good.
I've
We've
kind of
shaken that
convinced
up. That's good.
yeah, I just kind of convinced myself, okay, well, just keep going wherever you're going, and then
No,
now, or
stop. Don't go anywhere. Don't keep going. You're already there. If you keep going, you're getting away from it, not towards it.
but there's still the expectation that there has to be something that I will know without a doubt, and I was like, since I don't know without a doubt, then
Is that a good story?
it's a story,
What's the
all right.
title of that story? Alexey's not there yet, or what? So maybe you're not there yet, but maybe when you realise you're not there and you stop trying, you'll be there. Okay, so here's a good story. This is something that was always a really big thing for me, especially years ago, guiding on LU. I had these people that I was guiding. Oh God, some of them I guided one lady for something like 50 pages on LU over years of guiding, and she was awake, but she was doing exactly what you're doing now. She's saying, "No, I'm not awake. I'm not awake. I know I'm not awake." And no matter what, I could not convince her that she was awake. And eventually she gave up and went away. I don't know whether she's woken up since, but oh. So here's something that I wrote as a result of that. It was about a page-long story in my notes. But anyway, what it is this: can you see that if you believe certain things about yourself, you're going to view the world from that perspective,
Yeah.
and so consequently, that those interpretations of things will give you a certain range of responses, but the responses will be tied to the meaning that you put into things, the meaning that you apply to what that is. So if you've got a story that says I'm not awake, right, you're never going to see the magic in things. You're never going to see things from an awakened perspective. Right? So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at everything about, well, what's next? Where can I go? What can I do to get there? Right. So this is going to be your whole perspective on things. But then let's say something magical happens and you're awake. then of course you're seeing the world from that perspective. And in that perspective, you're having a totally different lot of responses to things. From the perspective of being awake, there's nothing missing. There's no need to resist what turns up because it's inevitable. There it is. It's done. It's turned up and it's finished before you even realize what's going on. So you're much more relaxed because you're coming from the perspective of this is it. Whereas if you're coming from the perspective of something else has got to happen, that changes your experience, doesn't it? Same circumstances, exactly the same circumstances, but from one, you're going, more's got to happen. From the other, you'll go, okay, this is it. Stories all the way down. You just tell yourself different stories to what I do. I tell myself stories from I'm awake. You tell yourself stories from I'm not awake. That's it. 100%, 100% of it. What stories do you tell yourself? What stories do you believe?
But if you're not awake and thinking you're awake, that's a belief. You're just you're just saying,
Okay, stop,
I'm
stop. No,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. All right. So if you're telling yourself you're not awake, or you're telling yourself you are awake and you're not awake, it's true that you're going to have, you're going to be a Donald Trump, aren't you? You're going to, have all these beliefs about yourself that are obviously not true. But if you are awake and you're telling yourself you're not awake, that's what I'm talking about. If you are awake and you're telling yourself you're not awake, if you are awake and you're telling yourself you are awake, things are going to change. So I'm not going to go up to some bloke on the street and say, oh, you're already awake. You've just got to believe you're awake. If he were to do that, if I were to wave a magic wand and have him do that in a kind of a way, he may well wake up in that moment. But that's unlikely. I mean, I don't do that kind of thing. But
yeah.
but see, so I'm not telling you you're awake to make you wake up. I'm telling you that you are awake to stop you from telling yourself stories that you're asleep, that you're not awake. Now I might be wrong, you maybe you're not awake, but I think you are. And I wouldn't be pursuing this line if I didn't have that belief. But I recognise that it's just a story I've got about you, and I don't know you that well, but I listen to you and I listen to your experiences, and they tell me that you're awake. At times, I also hear you say things that you're definitely not awake with, but they're just stories that you don't need to carry around. You don't need to keep them.
I just had this belief or expectation that somehow the stories will fall away in some way where I won't feel them anymore, or when they come up in my mind, they won't feel bad in the body. And I
Excellent.
thought that there'll
Right.
be
That's
someday
going
that
to take
it becomes
one
like that.
story. Only one story has to change for that to happen for you. And that's the story that you're not awake. When it turns into that you are awake, those other things will stop. They won't happen. Or what you describing you would think should happen might happen. Or you'll see them as just a story that's not really relevant to anything. Now, if you do get to trying out the story that you are awake, that'll bring up other stuff. Right? It's something that we all experience. We have those moments where things are going along pretty good, and then all of a sudden some, let's call it suffering, version of suffering turns up, and most people will go, oh, bugger, I lost it. I had it and then I lost it. Well, that's not the case. Right? What happened was things were going along pretty good. And for that reason, shit was able to come up to be looked at because there was space for it, because there was readiness for it, kind of thing. So it's always a forward movement. When you go from I'm not awake to I am awake, that story, it can allow a whole lot of stuff to come up really quickly. And it's really important that you don't then go, oh, I lost it. I had it for a moment and then I lost it. No,
No, no.
because
I mean, like I know my experience. It varies. There's this. It's always going to be there's nothing constant. This thing is going to fluctuate.
yep,
There's no way this can be beautiful and all that. There's no way. Like
yeah, that's
this
very
is
awake
not
of
the
you
way
to
it is.
realise that.
But I think everyone here, almost anybody you talk to, they're going to say, yeah, well, the experience can be constant. There's just it's life.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
not a
that's right. But and you have a recognition of that, and other people might acknowledging it. And I'm not talking about people here, but other people might acknowledge that intellectually, yet they still behave as if there's a constant, a continuity, a stable something,
yeah.
or they still have that as another thought. So we can have contradictory thoughts, with contradictory stories can exist quite easily, both running at the same time, both running flat out even. But yeah, but that's something that you appreciate at a deep level, that there is this constant movement. Well, even that's not the right way to say it, but you know what I mean. There is continual change all the time. Every experience that you have changes you. And so then the next moment, you're a different person to what you were before.
I've been having this for this interesting experience for maybe the last th 3 to 6 months where I look back maybe an hour or the day before and I don't know who that person is, what he said. I don't know how he was looking at the world.
Yeah, I get it.
He's so foreign. Like I don't recognize him. Like
That's
it's not, that's a weird thing. And I was like, this thing is just kind of really odd. It's really, really odd that it just before it used to be like there's that me. I was like, that thing is I don't know who said those things. I don't recognize them, and it's okay. I accept that I don't recognize that it was just in the past, whatever. But it just become more glaring. I don't know who that entity was that
yeah,
was
exactly.
able to have that perspective. And I was like, maybe it's just a weird thing. Maybe everyone has that.
No,
And
no,
I haven't.
no. Most people say it was me yesterday and it's me today. What are you going to say,
Uh,
Monique? Jump in.
I have to jump in because that's been my experience all of today. It's why I'm here at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. I'm walking and I feel like it's like, who is this that I'm walking with?
And
A
that's not even
very,
yesterday.
it was yesterday, it was very intense today. Because and I'm trying to understand it, but there's there's nothing up there to explain this.
it just feels like a foreign entity, right? Like I don't know who wrote
Yeah,
that or who said that.
yeah,
Such a
exactly. Yeah, and I come back home, I have to look at myself in the mirror to see who is this
Yeah,
person. I don't know who this is.
right. I had
It's
that
like as
feeling
things
too. It's so
drop,
odd.
it's like, yeah, it's like honestly, it's like walking with a ghost of the person or personalities that used to be. It's a bit unnerving, actually.
when I think of Vince back before waking up, I get this really distinct impression of a black and white comic book, and this character in a comic book with the name Vince. I have no idea who he is, right? But there are certain things that feel a bit familiar. But yeah,
Yes.
it's like it's as tangible as a line outline drawing of a person that was, yeah. But yet,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have that about yesterday. But yesterday is almost like a blank. No, not a blank's not right. A vacuum, an emptiness. I have no memory about yesterday. I would have to really work hard to have a memory of it, and I mostly couldn't be bothered. You know, if my wife says, "Do you remember something?" I go through this process where I go, "Well, is it important enough for me to put the effort in to try and remember it?" But mostly I'll just say I don't remember.
Yeah. Strange feeling. It's like I'm trying to figure it out with my head, but it's not connecting.
There's no answers. I wouldn't bother.
No, there's no answer. Well, it took me all day to realize there's no answer. This is just
Mm.
something that's happening. It's just, it's like it feels like things are just dropping so much that I don't recognize myself from one day to the next. It's
So how's all this stuff falling on you, Ray?
You mean right in this moment? Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think I have a similar experience where I kind of don't, I almost don't recognize the person that I was. I don't recognize the person I am, like, not in this moment. I think I have a similar experience to kind of what Monique and Alexei are describing. And at least right now, like the question that comes up for me when I hear us all talking about it is like, can we accept that, you know? And I feel like I don't know, like it is mildly disorienting, but I feel like I can. So if somebody was just like, "Hey, you did this thing yesterday that was like, really mean or like really awful." Like in the moment that I hear that, I'm just like, "Oh, like that doesn't sound good." Like it's almost like, "Oh, I don't know that person. Is there something I can do to make amends in this moment?" Because that person isn't me. Like I'm something different now. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
There's like an acceptance of something that's happened in the past that I think it means a lot to another person that's like, well, you did this thing. And I'm just like, well, I understand that in the relative sense, like, the person that you understand to be me has mistreated you. But like who I am right now, I recognize and I feel that, you know, what happened to you is not right. And if there's something that I can do to make it right, then I will try to do that.
yeah.
But I don't
So
know.
I would reframe that slightly from what would be prominent in my understanding of that is that essentially the same thing, that I don't that you're talking about an intention, this other person that probably wasn't there. But I do recognize that you saw it as that way. That was your interpretation of what happened. And I have compassion for the fact that you're feeling bad about it. But the actual
I
act,
mean,
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't remember doing that. I certainly didn't have the intention to hurt you when it happened. But if that happened, I recognise, and I wouldn't say this to them, of course, because they're not going to get it, that it was their interpretation that caused the suffering for them over that particular thing. But right now, right here, I would like you to feel better than what you're feeling when you think about that. So what can I do? Yeah. So same thing, but from a different perspective.
yeah, pretty much where it's almost like I don't need to. I feel like a lot of the default is like, oh, well, if I still feel like I'm this person who's been accused of doing this bad thing a day ago, then I feel the need to defend myself somehow and say, well, like, oh,
Yes.
well, I did this
Yeah.
because X, Y, or Z, or oh, well, I'm sorry, like I wasn't thinking X, Y, or Z. Whereas in the moment where I don't relate to the person that the person I was a day ago, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah,
what can I like? What needs to happen with the situation now?
absolutely. Perfect. Love it. Yeah.
So, I
Yep.
don't know. So I mean, I can relate to that experience. I kind of, um, yeah, I don't know. And the other thing that I was thinking about with what Alexei was saying was, kind of what we had talked about, I think on, a couple of days ago, where it was like I was talking about catastrophizing with like the move. And it's like basically any time that you have this belief or this story that like binds your attention, and in this case being like, well, I identify somebody who's awake or I identify somebody who is not awake. Like in both cases, that belief has your attention. And like you kind of have to like relax that belief and be willing to not have an opinion or like an understanding of it at all. Because that's what frees up your attention for what's actually happening right now.
Yes, you got it.
And
Beautiful, beautiful.
I mean, that's the parallel that I drew because that kind of made sense to me. And so, I mean, just to kind of recap really quickly, I was nervous about moving out of my house into an apartment. And we were talking about how, like, oh, well, I'm constantly going through all of these stories about like how it's going to go wrong and like how it's going to be terrible and I'm going to mess it all up. And like that was a story or a belief I was telling myself. And like my attention was getting caught up in it and it was causing me suffering because I was just like, well, now I'm like super worried. And so, like, the solution to that is not like, oh, well, I'm going to come up with a different story about how it's going to go great. And like, I'm going to focus on how all these things are going to go right and how good I'm going to feel. Because then that's a belief that has my attention as well. Kind of like where
It's the
I
same
ultimately
thing. Yeah,
landed.
exactly. Same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Where I, right. Where I ultimately landed or kind of what I took from it is like, I don't know how it's going to go. And so for me, believing it's going to go either really good or really bad or any way at all is
The
going to
effort.
bind up my attention
Yeah.
and like leave that attention free for what's happening.
It's perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So that makes me just want to add for Alexi that when the story I am awake seems to be the main one running, it's not there. It gets dropped. We're way too busy relating with it to this to have that story running. But whereas when we got the story running, I'm not awake. That's active, and there's a lot of spin-offs from it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, as Ray points out, it's not a case of going from I'm not awake to I am awake. It's a case of going from I'm not awake to I don't know.
Yeah, to just what the fuck is
Yeah,
happening.
Dropping it
Yeah.
all.
yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
drop it all.
I think
Right.
that's what
Like
we
just
talked
leave
about
that
last
attention
time.
free.
yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Leonard. Long time no see.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I haven't been here for quite a while, I guess. Yeah, what is happening at the moment is I noticed that before um, I was still trying to do more, like I tried to be more mindful, and it was like rather forcing myself a bit. So now I would say I really started to accept things, or well, accept, I mean, anyway, I don't have a choice, but yeah, I needed a bit of time to let things just go and walk alone a bit. But yeah, it's a bit paradox because I don't question myself about this being awake or not being awake, but yeah, in this acceptance of not having control, there is also like things happening that I don't like. I mean, certain habits, for example, but other habits that I had for many years, I mean, I don't really know what's happening, but they seem to have kind of disappeared. But others are a bit stronger at the moment. So, yeah, it's kind of sometimes I feel like, wow, there's like a big, yeah, I don't know, need to divert, or I don't really know. It's like really obsessive behavior, um, diverting and not really feeling the capacity to be mindful and but there is still there is still the observation of it, so it's like a bit weird.
Mm,
Um, and at the moment, I'm not trying to do anything I mean, I just let it happen. I mean,
mm.
again, letting it happen, I can't really change it anyway.
Yep, yep, yep.
And then the question for me is like, okay, div diverting is happening, and then am I telling myself a story about it or not?
Yeah.
So actually, and I discovered that when I just don't judge it, then it's not that bad anyway. I mean, it's not dramatic. So
Okay. So that was going to be my question. Are you judging it? So you're saying I should be more mindful, or this behavior shouldn't come up?
no, yeah, I'm not judging it. I mean, maybe I still need a little story to be okay with it. It's like, yeah, I mean, then the story is okay, that's the just the product of conditioning and s- okay, so I can't do anything. I mean, that's a story as well, so or
Hmm.
an interpretation,
So
but it's
what if you moved slightly into saying what would be a really good story that I could tell myself under these circumstances?
mm,
So instead of
yeah.
yes, let's move from just a story being
Mm,
stories being just a story, or stories being
mm,
an escape, or stories being something negative, whatever that might be, to
mm,
whatever
mm,
whatever story comes up,
mm,
recognize it as just a story, but it's a
mm,
good story. Or if it's not a good story, how could I modify this story to make it a good story? No,
mm,
it's still a story, and not feeling bad at all about the fact that there are stories there about that. I mean, we do.
mm,
It is stories all the way down. We tell ourselves stories all the time. We can't not tell ourselves stories. It's the nature of being human that we do that.
mm.
So the difference between not awake and awake, well, I'm harping on that one a bit, is the quality of the stories.
Yeah, one of the stories I'm quite okay with is that there are already, I mean, I would call it kind of addictions. So some of the addictions have just fallen away. For example, I would say like when I consumed a lot of drugs and alcohol, that was actually kind of a search for no fear, like not having fear. That has fallen away, really fallen away, but then it was replaced by the spiritual
Yes.
seeking that has also fallen away. I'm not reading anything anymore. I'm not trying to identify with any philosophy or anything anymore. Um, then there was also maybe this habit of searching for a romantic partner, and I must say that that is not something that is happening at the moment. I mean, it could happen again. I don't really know,
It will or it won't. Yes.
um, but it's really like it seems to be really like there is, yeah, I I see there is the seeing that there is no mel watermelon in the fridge. Um, but instead of all these things, what is coming up at the moment is like a really obsessive way of searching for places where I could move to. That's like the one of the
Yeah.
things. And
So
then
that's a good. So the on the surface, you could make a judgment about that being a case of diversion again. I'm diverting from something,
yeah.
whatever. It might or it might not be that. It might be, but there is when there is obsessive searching for anything,
Hmm.
it does come out of a discomfort.
Yeah.
And so rather than try and identify what that discomfort is,
Hmm.
just sitting, resting with the fact that there is something there
Hmm.
is much more likely to reveal itself than if you go looking for why or what. And certainly,
Hmm.
any judgment about that is going to interrupt that process. So any idea that this is wrong or this that I'm doing it for the wrong reason or anything like that, that's just extra corruption on the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has been like that for all my life. I mean, I have always been very curious for traveling and getting to know places, other
Okay, so
cultures,
this is
and
an easy one.
so.
This is really easy. So when you think about going somewhere else, is there a pull towards it or is there a push? Are you moving away from something or towards something? It's
Mm,
an intuitive thing that will tell you, so if
mm,
you're going towards something, it's an energetic adventure
yeah,
discovery thing. If you're going away from something, oh, okay, what's behind me that I don't want to see? Yeah.
yeah. For example, I'm okay with my job. But I must say that there are other things that I find a bit more interesting or that I'm enjoying to do them more than what I'm doing at the moment. So kind of without really stressing myself, I'm like going more into that direction of preparing to change the job. It's not that I need to do it, but anyway, at the moment, the political situation is a bit anti-migration, and I'm working as a German teacher. So the thing is, they control the borders, and not so many migrants come to Germany anymore. So at work, I don't have anything to do because there are no courses taking place because there are no participants. And at the institute, they don't really know if we are going to have new elections in February, and it's most likely to get more restricted everything. So the government won't
They might shut
pay
the whole thing
money
down
for
anyway.
this kind of courses. So that's kind of a natural thing that is happening at the moment. So yeah, it just gave me a bit of a
Yeah,
push to think
yeah.
about something else because maybe that's not a job that will
It may not
serve
exist. Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
future.
So life does this, doesn't it? Life does this all the time.
Yeah, and then it's not that I believe that when I move to a different place, everything will be different. I mean, there will still be the things within this personality, but it's rather like, oh, I could try this or that. And I mean, I after 5 years of Argentina, I speak Spanish fluently, and I don't know Spain, so I'm planning my next trip, and it's
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah,
bit like, maybe I can also find some places that could be a nice place to live at.
yeah, for
But
sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, and of course, with
yeah, but
Spanish, you got more than just Spain with Spanish. A large part of the world speaks Spanish. Yeah,
hmm,
yeah, yeah. Just allowing life to show you where to put the next foot is just great.
yeah, and I don't know. It's maybe, but it can get a bit obsessive, but it's also due to the winter and it's gray and you can't really go outside. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoy to be outside, but at the moment it's a bit too
Mm.
cold for me. So
Well,
maybe,
much nicer climate in
that,
Spain.
yeah, it's probably a bit nicer than here.
Well, no snow anyway. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, good, good.
Yeah, but I can still see that it's a bit of obsessive behavior. Like
Well, so
it's in
don't judge
Fantasyland.
that though, you know. So if you've been obsessive all your life,
Mm,
it'll kind of continue regardless, you know. Now that's not
mm,
quite to say right. It's not like that, you know. But what you might find is that what could be described as obsessive behavior from outside might still look to be the same, but it's driven from
mm,
a different place. So you might find
mm.
that you still behave in a kind of an obsessive way, but there isn't the urgency anymore for it. There isn't the,
Yeah.
you know, whatever else is in that obsessiveness isn't there. It's a much more relaxed kind of whatever. I get obsessive about things, and and
Mm,
and it's just my nature. I mean, I sometimes joke and I say, well, I'm not obsessive. I'm just persistent. You know, well, it's just a way of playing
yeah.
words, isn't it? You know. But that's my nature. If I'm into something, I'm into something, and I want to find
Mm,
out all I can about it, or I want to really get into
mm,
it, you know. Yeah. So it's like don't recognize the morality inherent in labels like obsessive. You know, it may,
mm,
you know. So it's I don't know that there's a word that describes a relaxed obsessiveness, but something
mm,
like that might be more appropriate once you see that. You can't see that you're being obsessive and still be obsessive. You know,
mm.
you see it,
Yeah, I
some
would
aspect
rather
of it changes.
say, I mean, the new thing that is, I'm really allowing myself to not do anything and just lie around or not staring at the ceiling or, well, I mean, it's not doing nothing either, but
Yeah, yeah,
um, or listening to music for hours,
mm,
really like, but only listening to the music and nothing else.
yeah.
So
You get a
that's
different quality
rather,
back. Yeah, the ceiling becomes interesting because it's actually got patterns on it
mm,
you never saw before. You know, or the
yeah.
music is pretty good because you're feeling it now rather than just listening to it. Yeah.
But I guess this personality here is rather highly energetic or like I don't know. Sometimes, for example, I yeah, recently I talked to a friend on the phone and then she asked me, "How are you?" And then I said, "Oh, it feels that I'm rather lethargic at the moment." But then I thought, yeah, but actually I'm learning a language. I'm doing a podcast and I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation for a course that I invented and stuff like that. So then I must notice that is, yeah, still like highly energetic or like a lot of input or things that I'm doing, but it feels like I'm super lethargic and
Hmm.
just at home not doing anything. So,
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So it occurs to me to tell you that before you turned up, I put a link in the chat. So you should grab
Mhm.
hold of that link and
Uh-huh.
have a play with that. You might find that really interesting. Ask it questions. Have
Ah,
arguments with it.
okay, I can't see it maybe because I came later,
Oh,
or
okay. It's not in the chat anymore.
I don't
It's still
see
there.
anything in
Okay.
chat.
All right. I'll put one specifically to you, to Leonard.
Okay,
So
thank
It's,
you.
it's in the
same
chat.
same
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
it's
but
in the chat.
Leonard maybe doesn't see it because of
Oh,
the fact that it was in there
Okay.
before he came. Maybe I don't know.
I'm just looking at it now. It's in there, but
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, for me there is nothing in the chat.
Oh,
oh, okay. Oh, okay. It didn't start. Right. I understand what you're saying now. Yeah.
okay. There it is in your chat. So yeah, have a play with that. That might be of interest for you to see what comes out of that one.
Okay, it's strange. I don't see anything here.
Oh, okay. I sent that to Leonard, so it should be there.
Hmm, strange.
All right. I'll email it to you. Don't worry.
Okay, that's nice of you. Thank you.
Hmm. What comes to mind is the value of playing. Right? Just like when we were kids, when we were quite young kids, we played, and from the outside, it seemed like that we created fantasy worlds. You know, whether we played cowboys and Indians or whatever we played, there was a distinct element of creation in it, and without realizing it, we were discovering things about ourselves. And we were discovering our limits. We were discovering whether we could do things or not. We
Mhm.
jump off the garage roof or ride a bike or whatever it was but there was a large element of discovery in the play. And so what I say is don't take any of this stuff seriously. It's much more appropriate to see it as a game to be played
Mhm.
just to see what comes out of it. And in that rather looser way, uh, we'll make discoveries. And you know you're taking it too seriously the moment you have opinions about things.
Yeah, actually, at work, things are, yeah, kind of going really horrible, but I don't really know why, but I'm having a very good contact with my colleagues. So it's basically like we are the teachers who work most while there are other people like sitting in their offices, and the communication between the teachers and the boss or the secretary is not working very well. or sometimes they are rather unfriendly or not really appreciating our work, and things don't work. They don't pay for cleaning personnel, so the toilets are really like disgusting, and yeah, for example, the elevator doesn't work, and they are not like really caring for anything. I mean, I'm a German teacher, but I don't have Word on my computer, and the printer doesn't work, and nothing really works. And actually, it's only to for them, it's only like we want to have the full courses and then we can make money with that. But like our work, which we are like the main people who are like doing this whole business, we are kind of unimportant. And I mean, but there is like a lot of solidarity between the teachers, and we are laughing really a lot because the situation is so bizarre, or like it's really like some kind of comedy sometimes. And I must say, in that surrounding, I can really see it like a theater play or some like a bad comedy or something. But I guess I don't take it too seriously because I'm used to chaotic situations from Argentina. But yeah, we're having a lot of fun, and the contact with the colleagues is like very good.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
Well, how soon are your elections?
Uh, the 23rd.
Oh, this month. Okay, so maybe people are just winding down if they don't expect to be there after the elections.
Hmm.
Uh, who knows? Yeah. So you're not even busy with classes anymore.
I have, well, I have two courses, and one of them is like 2 days a week. Then the other 2 days, a colleague is with the class. And there is one course that will end in the end of this month, but there is no following course
Yeah, yeah,
yet.
yeah.
And even the new one had to start like, I don't know, 1 month later because they didn't have enough participants. So it's not really clear. But the interesting thing is that that doesn't really make me nervous at all. It's
Mm.
just like, ah, well, maybe I will be fired and then I will live happily ever after. So, I mean, actually, I would really appreciate being fired.
Sounds like a good attitude. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that would be life telling you something quite clearly, wouldn't it? Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the whole world at the moment is kind of a bit up in the air, wondering what's going to happen. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, we've got elections coming up here sometime in the next, well, 12 weeks, I suppose. Yeah, so that's also going to be interesting. Um, and of course, the situation in America is very much up in the air. Nobody knows what's going to come out of that. That's certainly going to affect us, but it'll affect everybody in the world. So who knows? Yeah. Interesting times
Hmm.
when there is no certainty. And of course, interestingly, certainty is one of the things that um, is probably most sought after in the world. That
Hmm.
drives a lot of people is that wanting certainty about things. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I recently read an interview, but it was like by an Estonian artist, and she was writing about the 90s, like after the breakdown of Soviet Union, and she made a film about that time, and she said something that I found very interesting, and it was that it was like really crazy, chaotic times in the 90s, and nobody knew what was going to happen. But she said that it was also a very interesting time because, like, those times when you are pushed out of your comfort zone can be very creative and
Yeah,
yeah, it make you feel even closer to life. Like, not it's not all the same
yeah,
thing that feels secure and that's basically every day the same routine. So it's like,
yeah.
I mean, you can also, I mean, for a lot of people in the world, it's not,
Oh, of
yeah,
course.
it would be appropriate to say that. I mean, that's like said from a quite privileged point of view, but
Well, you
still, I
could.
mean,
I would be more likely to divide it up into those who are fairly secure in their own identity, and
hmm,
those who are not. You know, those who are not are going to, of course, have a fearful reaction to that uncertainty, and whereas others
hmm,
might see it as interesting times. And you could then say, oh, well, those who find it interesting are privileged. That probably is the majority of
hmm,
people would be privileged. Who knows? Yeah. But yes, when we say we live in interesting times, we can mean a whole lot of things, can't we?
hmm.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm thinking we'll have an early mark tonight, wind up a bit early if nobody else wants to jump back in. Uh,
Good. It's just about to nod off. Thank you so much for tonight.
well, thank you. I
Thanks so
found
much.
it
Yeah.
good. I enjoyed it. I always
Mhm.
enjoy a good soapbox rant.
It's a little more than that, but it's nice to rent.
Yeah, I found it interesting. Yeah. Crazy. I see. I don't know how I come across, but I imagine that I come across pretty forthright a lot of the time. But there is just one of the things that happens, Alexei, is I trust my intuition. I mean, that's just a stupid thing to say because I don't even think about it. But I've got to the point where I don't care what comes out of my mouth. You know, yeah, I don't know how to say it, but yeah. All right. So now I'll go and cook tea. See you later.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night,
Enjoy
everyone.
your tea.